4 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Our forum. Oversight board members.
Like we do, yeah.
Go to item 1.1. This is going to be our pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're gonna do roll call.
Yes.
Board Member Wayne. Here. Board Member Walkup. Board Member Tiffany. Board Member Martin.
Present.
Board Member Gomez.
Here.
Board Member Fonseca.
Present.
Board Member Dement.
Here.
Board Member Casares. Board Member Blackman. Vice Chair Castanos. Here. And Chair Johnson.
Here. Thank you. Item number 2, any additions and or deletions to the agenda?
None from staff.
Go on to number 3, public comments.
We have one public comment online.
Okay.
Andy Tremlett, you may go ahead and make your comment.
Cool, thank you. Hey folks, I'm a huge data nerd and I've been really looking forward to the first annual report from the Racial and Identity Profiling Act. It was supposed to be released in April and I haven't been able to find it. I don't know if it exists somewhere that I just can't find. So I'd love to know A, where it is, and B, I think it would be a great item to discuss in a future oversight board meeting. So hopefully you can add that to the agenda. That's all. Thanks. Bye.
We don't have any more public comment.
She just can't.
She can't.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have our one of our board members, Lauren Cazares, but I guess she can just listen in, right? She can't really actually participate.
Yeah, it's probably worth mentioning. Lauren can be here as a member of the public. She cannot be here as a voting body, due to the Brown Act.
Right.
So, just for the record.
No, we can't. You have to be physically here.
Okay, item 4, any conflict disclosures? Anyone have some good? And item number 5, our current business. 5.1, approval of the minutes for the Community Police Oversight Board regular meeting held July 19th, 2023. Yes, John.
I move. Seconds.
Okay.
What was the motion?
Approval of the minutes.
Approve the minutes.
Oh, I know, and then.
And the second,
And second,
Susan.
Susan.
Board Member Wayne, how do you vote?
Yes.
Board Member Martin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Board Member Gomez, how do you vote?
Stay.
Board Member Fonseca, how do you vote?
Yes.
Board Member Dement, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Castanos, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries with Board Member Gomez abstaining and everyone else voting yes.
Our next item of business, 5.2, the Mesa Police Department updates.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see everybody again. Just want to give you a few things. Obviously, we start with staffing. We are down actually one more position as of yesterday for a police officer. We had an officer leave us unfortunately and go to another agency. It's unfortunate, but we're continuing in the background processes with the applicants that we have. So hopefully we'll be able to fill that position fairly soon. We have one dispatcher opening. We're still trying to fill that. Right now, we have 30 or 40 applicants that are going to be going into interviews. So that's a good thing to have. It's more than we've had before. So hopefully we can get somebody that's qualified to do that. We'll probably end up trying to hire 2 dispatchers off of that because we have one dispatcher that's set to retire in December. We have openings right now for 3 part-time community service officers. Those are the civilian police officer, not police officers, civilian assistants that we have in the field. Want to go over a couple upcoming events. This is on the city website. But on Thursday, September 7th, as I mentioned before, we're doing a staffing study. We're currently in the middle of that with Citygate Associates. They're going to be doing 2 community listening sessions to get input from the public about what you want to see in your police department. So this is a great opportunity to come out, get that input there. It's going to occur on Thursday, September 7th. It'll be in this room right here, the police department community room. And that will be an evening session from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Our second session will be on Saturday, September 9th. And that will be a morning session, and that is from 10 a.m. until 12 p.m. I encourage as many people as we can get to come out, to include the board. You are community members, and we're looking for your input as we build what it looks like for our staffing model into the future. So I appreciate that. And then on Saturday, September 16th, we're going to have our annual safety fair. So ourselves and Heartland Fire will be out here in the Civic Center parking lot. Big displays, fun times for kids and families to come out and get some great information on preventing being victims from crime, learning CPR, all of those things. So we have quite an event planned for Saturday, September 16th, and that's from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. Want to give you a couple updates. We have had some hate incidents in the city of La Mesa. This has been brought up. It's not only happening here in the city of La Mesa, but it's happening in the city of San Diego, the city of Los Angeles, and across basically California right now. We had 3 of these hate incidents. And basically what it is somebody's going around distributing anti-Semitic flyers in the areas of, sorry, let me get the areas here. Aztec Park. We've had it at 5700 Maya. We've had it at 5300 Maryland. We've had 3 instances, like I said, they happened in June, July, and then we just had one on August 3rd where it came again. We're familiar with the group that's distributing the flyers. We've been working very closely with the district attorney's office, the Anti-Defamation League, and LGBTQ liaisons, because there is some hate flyers for that too, to make sure that we're all communicating. The information that we get and that every other agency in the county gets is forwarded to the law enforcement coordination system. They're basically our fusion center, intelligence center that collects this information. Like I said, we have likely identified the person and the group that has done it. However, it hasn't risen to the level of a crime yet. So we're documenting it as a hate incident and monitoring that very closely. Captain Runge and his team patrol have been following up on that, and then Captain Nicholas with detectives have been working very closely with the DA's office, the ADL, and the LECC, the Law Enforcement Coordination Center, as I mentioned. So we're following that very closely. If there's any questions, I know that happy to answer anything what we're doing.
question.
Yeah.
How does that come into play with the freedom of speech, and like at what point is it crossing the line? Or
That's where it's at right now, and that's why we're calling it a hate incident. It's still hate fueled, but it is still within the realm of free speech. And so once it crosses that threshold, it can be very little. It doesn't take a lot, but we're definitely monitoring that to make sure that it doesn't rise to that level.
What's an example of it crossing there?
An example of that is talking to somebody and yelling hate speech at them. It's free speech, but now you're directing at a person directly. It could be violence of any kind, obviously, especially with these flyers and the hate speech that they have on them. They're very disgusting. So that's what we're watching for. And we encourage everybody, please, if you see somebody out there doing it, please call us. There's video that we were able to obtain from some residents, so we appreciate the community's cooperation to get that information that helped us basically identify who and where they're doing it. But, you know, just rest assured, we're watching it very closely and just, you know, for people to maintain their safety. If they see something, say something, please call us.
If the flyers advocate harm or violence, could that be a trigger?
It could. It's probably the start of what could be the trigger for a crime incident rather than a hate incident. But typically there's more involved in it. Right now, we haven't seen that level where there's any threats of violence or anything else. It's still disgusting, but it has been very benign, so to speak, as far as not threatening.
And it's mainly like defamation of character. Is libel, I guess.
Yeah, it's anti-Semitic. That's what we've seen. We have seen some flyers, anti-LGBTQ. So it's.
But isn't it targeted at, I mean, don't they show pictures of people and say they're all these lies?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there have been pictures of people just all over the place who they're calling out as Jewish in that instance. And if, like I said, if something from that, all of a sudden we started to see instances of people at houses or driving by, that crosses the line. That kind of moves us into the next category of a crime investigation that we would move into. That's why I say it's important that, you know, we use everybody's eyes to find out what's going on. If you see something that's strange, or you've been a victim of this, or you received this on your car and it's specific to you, we need to know about it. And just anything.
I don't know the law specifically in this area, but I do know that there are at times permits that are necessary to be able to have certain communications. I mean, are they performing these type of activities on any of the grounds that would require a permit to be able to do and maybe go after them in that manner?
Yeah, right now, no. It would be the same thing as somebody going through Costco and distributing flyers, or through a private area and distributing flyers.
Gotcha.
So no, but we're looking at all avenues.
Okay.
If someone was to act based on these flyers, would the person distributing the flyers be liable for that action as well, or is it just solely on the person that's acting?
I guess the lawyer answer would be, it depends. I'm not a lawyer. But we would look into all of that. Obviously, if they were related and they conspired to do this, then we have a conspiracy. But I mean, there's a multitude of possibilities there. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Sure.
So have you made a public statement other than in here?
No, we haven't.
Will you? I mean, telling us is nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you're gonna put out a
We
statement?
can put it on, well, we could put it on our social media, do we not?
Yeah, and we had a couple of press inquiries because it's not limited to La Mesa.
Right.
It's all over, and there's been some.
I just haven't seen any statement from La Mesa Police.
Right.
And there's nothing denouncing this. So my friends who are Jewish are terrified. They're absolutely shaking in their boots. They don't go places. Because, I mean, they wouldn't come here at all. Because this might be a place where somebody would see them come. I mean, they're very afraid.
I understand, and that's not what we want. We are absolutely 100% against this, any hate.
But we haven't seen any statement.
I'm telling you right now, and we'll make sure that we're doing that. I know there was a press release that was done.
When was that?
I'd have
Because
to
nobody's
ask.
seen it.
We'd have to look. I don't know.
And where will we find this statement?
Like I said, I'll find out when the press release went out,
Okay,
and I'll let you know.
okay. Are you gonna make another statement though? I mean, because we've seen nothing about zero tolerance or denouncing this, or what can the public do, or like your questions about when does it become more than this, So and what we need to, if you see something, say something, but like get descriptions of the people, get car descriptions, license plate, what do we need?
You need all of that. You need the license
We
plate
need to
numbers,
know.
you need the descriptions of the people, the residents that we've worked with that have given us that, have given us all of that. It's, like I said, it's disgusting. We are absolutely against it, and if we can find a reason to where it crosses that threshold of crime, then we will absolutely, to the fullest, work with the DA's office to make sure that that person or persons are prosecuted for that crime.
It's just nice to know that you're working with the DA and ADL.
Absolutely,
I mean, we didn't know that.
sure.
So, I mean, that gives us a little bit of comfort, but I'm not Jewish, so I'm just here because they don't feel like they can go out of their home.
We'll make sure that we reach out to, especially with the ADL and our residents in the community that are Jewish, to make sure that they feel comfortable coming here and reporting that. We have contacts over at ADL and the LGBTQ Center, both because they're both affected here, to make sure that they understand that it's intolerable for us. And that if that action is happening, that we want them to report it.
That's good because there's only 2% of the whole population that are Jewish.
Sure.
And they haven't heard any denouncing from you, so they feel like their 2% doesn't count.
It absolutely counts. I understand that though. Thank you.
Right, that's what I'm here for. I'm gone.
Okay.
All right.
And if you want to get information to her, I can get it to her.
Yeah, perfect.
Right.
And then can I follow up? I'm just curious, with the incidences that you have had, is it a singular person that is doing that? Or is it is there someone to look after or look out for? Or is there multiple individuals who are just a part of this group and there's not one part of this person?
There have been multiple. Yes.
And I think Captain Runge had a name of a group that was participating in it.
Yeah, there's on the flyers, they have a symbol and the name GDL, which stands for the Goyim Defense League.
Oh, okay, that's right.
And they are very well known to the ADL. And if you Google that name, it will come up with a link to the ADL's information page about that group.
Okay.
All right, real quick, I have two more things. Inquiry was mentioned about our RIPA the Racial Identity and Profiling Act. We did report that to the Department of Justice in April, like we were required to. Once it goes to the Department of Justice, then when the Department of Justice releases all of the stats, and that would be public. However, I am working on a presentation for the Police Oversight Board that I'll share our stats with you. I don't have a timeline yet, as soon as we get through a couple things that we have going right now. But I'll be able to get that information out to you so that those that like numbers, Mr. Tremlett, you have that. And then last but not least, we had an officer involved shooting on Sunday, August 7th or 6th, excuse me. So we're working through that very closely. This is our memorandum of understanding through the county has kicked in. It's basically what that means. The San Diego Police Department is investigating this shooting. Working closely with the district attorney's office, the FBI, U.S. Attorney's office. And then obviously this will come back to the oversight board through the independent police auditor. But it's going to take some time. So the only thing I ask is be patient. We're working on a critical incident video to get the information out to the public as to what happened. Extremely scary. Just kind of brings the realities of what we do to light.
So when there is a death by an officer, that automatically goes to the DA?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So they.
Any shooting.
Okay,
would go to
so
the
it's
DA.
investigated by, in our case, San Diego PD will investigate, and then the DA follows up.
Yeah, any shooting at a person would be sent to the district attorney's office for criminal liability review.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Yeah. Item 5.3 is a quarterly report from the independent police auditor covering the period of April 1st, 2023 through June 30th.
Okay, before I get going on this, I got called and spoke with the acting chief about 90 minutes after the critical incident. They've been very good in keeping left up to speed. We've reviewed the videotape and the information that we have access to. So we're staying on top of that shooting right from the get-go. So they've been very open, transparent, and that's helped out well. So on to the quarterly report. You want to scroll down a little bit? Stacy, are you running it?
Yes.
Okay.
Where do you need me to scroll down to?
First incident.
Just keep going. Okay, 2209, we've actually completed, but it wasn't completed by the end of the quarter, so it will be reported on again next quarter. (2211) we've also completed, but it wasn't completed by the end of the last quarter, so it'll be reported on in the next meeting. And scroll down, Stacy.
Yes, I'm having trouble.
Well, you're doing a lot better than I could do. Again, this one was also completed, but it didn't make the deadline. (2303) is in the queue. We've reviewed it. We're working on it. I would expect it'll be done by the end of this quarter. It's pretty straightforward because the video is pretty good. And you know, just in viewing the video, the cars were parked in fire lanes. So we declined on this one as it's not a mandated audit. Also, this is probably the most common complaint in police oversight, that the officers took the other person's point of view. And that's going to happen in virtually every case where the officer finds anything other than a 50-50 responsibility. So, I mean, it's just one of those tough ones, but it's pretty common. But it does not meet our audit criteria.
So Rick, can I just ask a question about that? I think we talked about it in our small group discussions about it. Once our mediation process is in place and we've got mediators, would this be the type of complaint that would be put forward to mediation where, you know, that just they took the other person's side, the officer took the other person's side and they're upset about it, and, you know.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
this one's tailor-made for mediation. Discourtesy for sure is quality of service. It could probably be mediated. The problem with quality of service is the complainant would have no idea what the proper procedure would be on any given call, but that may lend itself to mediation so that the citizen can be educated on what's mandated and what's not mandated. In the case where the officer did what is supposed to be done, in cases where the service doesn't result in an arrest, and again, that's a fairly common complaint, you know, you can only arrest and prosecute those that you can identify and show proof against. So this is a pretty common complaint, but tailor-made for mediation. This case is pending both NIA and we're waiting for it we're obviously going to adopt this case because it alleges discrimination and civil rights violations. False arrest is generally best handled in a court setting. And that's where we would probably decline on false arrest, although we would opine on whether or not the officer had probable cause to make the arrest. We wouldn't investigate it totally.
So I just have a question about use of video. Are there guidelines, written guidelines within the department about video use by the public, or I don't know if, I mean, I guess maybe it's just understood that the public can videotape any interactions. I mean, I know the officers all wear body worn cameras, so it's just in addition to that, but there's nobody, I mean, you see across the nation and other cities where people are prohibited from or knocked over if they try to videotape something. That would never happen in La Mesa.
No, it's again, we're going back to the First Amendment, right? Free speech, your right to be there. It's your right to film in public. We're in public. I can film, you can film, anybody can film, and they do. Many times. The only thing that we always ask is please don't jump in too close where you're interfering with the investigation. Yeah, but typically we have people filming everything we do every single day, and that's fine. We understand that there's cameras out there and we have cameras. So that happens a lot.
Okay, and there doesn't necessarily have to be a written policy or procedure about that because it's law.
It's law.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, that would be the written policy.
Right.
There were a couple of questions somebody asked me to ask about that. Does Mesa PD train their officers regarding actions while they are or have been videoed by a member of the community? Is that something that's part of training?
It is part of scenario training, because you can have somebody that's aggressively trying to film you, getting up in your face, trying to get somebody out from an arrest while they're still filming. Now that changes things.
Right.
That changes the dynamics completely. Somebody standing on a sidewalk, standing back and filming, which I'm not kidding, happens every day. That's okay. And they can yell and call us all kinds of names. It hurts, but that's okay. You know, all I ask in my officers is that you're a professional out there and that you don't react, right? Unless it's a safety issue. Safety issue, then that's what we're concerned about. Other than that, the public absolutely can film. That's their right.
How long are the body camera footage? How long is that stored for? Because this seems like this complaint was February of 2021, which is like 30 months ago. So I mean,
it depends on the crime.
Yeah.
If it was just a contact incident, we have different dates. I'm not sure of the timelines, but obviously I don't recall if this one was still there.
I mean, I just think that's a safety issue for everyone, including the officers involved. I mean, if somebody's coming back, 2.5 years later and saying, there was some sort of racial discrimination, I mean, having that body cam footage, at least a different perspective that maybe the unedited would be really helpful for everyone involved.
Absolutely. I know there is video in this case, and I believe this is an uninvolved person. So this is not the person that was arrested.
And Rick, what I had as a note from our previous meeting was that it was sent back by you and that it wasn't well constructed. So we're looking to get a whole statement rewritten of this one, right? Sound right?
Yeah, there were some I's and T's that needed to be dotted and crossed. So we sent it back to IA through their commander, and I think it'll be out shortly.
Same number, but a different write-up. It'll be written a little bit different. Okay.
Okay, the next complaint, I actually did this one alone. If you'll scroll down just a little bit, you'll see we declined. I spoke with the one of the deceased who positively told me that she, her husband, and son were all alive. This individual suffers, according to his mother, from delusions. And so we nonetheless examined it, but when all three of the dead people who were desecrated are alive, we didn't feel like we needed to go any further on it.
Can I mention something in here real quick? Because I think it's important. That case in particular, I was also named as a subject. Just so you know, and I just, want to explain to you how the process works. So when somebody makes an accusation, and in this case, pretty serious accusations, we have to look into it, obviously, but we're making accusations that myself and other folks were doing something to a dead body, and just absolutely untrue. It doesn't matter. With Senate Bill 2, the way that it's written now, we still have to report all of the names of those officers, to include myself, to the post commission. So, I just reassure my officers, listen, you're getting referred to the post commission, so am I. And I got my letter saying that I was referred. And that's about an hour and a half per officer. Like I mentioned before, it takes time to do, but this is one of those cases where, unfortunately, the person's delusional and probably has some mental health illness, but it's still the work that it causes. I just wanted to reiterate that for the board.
Trends and issues, anybody have any questions on those? Okay, I think that concludes my portion. Thank you.
Strange, maybe it's not a strange question about the mediation process that we were talking about, and it was mentioned that the first complaint there was a good example of a time that mediation might be used. Is that always pursued by the complainant? Part of me kind of heard in this conversation that maybe that was something that the police department would say, hey, would you like to talk about this? Is it always one directional, I guess, in regards to requesting mediation, or is it ever reached out the other direction? Like, hey, we understand that you were really upset about this and it wasn't cause for an investigation, but would you be interested in? And I'm not trying to put that onto, that's more work, right? But I'm just kind of curious, does it work both ways? Does the police department ever pursue the mediation with the complainant rather than the other direction?
It's a great question. It's a brand new policy to us.
Yeah.
We haven't, waiting for the mediator to be identified before we implement the policy, but I think it could go either way.
Yeah, I'm just thinking there may be occasions where that might be a good gesture, maybe declined on a regular basis, but at least again, trying to build that relationship both directions, right? And I'm not suggesting that this case is that one, but it just kind of occurred to me.
And I think you make a really good point, because as hard as we might try to get word out about the availability of mediation, the public doesn't hear it or doesn't see it or doesn't remember that it's available. And to have officers reach out and say, hey, by the way, there is a mediation policy that you might want to participate in. I mean, it would be helpful if that, if it came from both directions, so.
And I understand not wanting to say that every single time.
Yeah.
Right, but there might be occasions where you're like, this would be a good opportunity for us to explain what's going on.
Especially if
And you may not need to do the whole mediation process, but just re-engaging.
And I think especially if you're dealing with a reasonable member of the community, it's like, well, I think we would benefit from sitting down and talking, so.
Well, sometimes, just so you know, the process goes, somebody comes in and they want to file a complaint and they're talking to a supervisor. That supervisor may have explained all this to them to that point. And that's the opportunity.
Yeah.
We can go mediation to do that. You can do formal complaint and explaining all of that to them would typically happen, who somebody came inside or called to make a complaint, we can explain all of that to them. But you're right, I mean, it's a great opportunity both ways.
Could I also follow up on an earlier thing past this point? I did get the sense that maybe there was a in response to the comment, and I didn't catch her name either. That there was a comment about or a press release of some sort. I'm looking to see if you found that. I saw you looking on your phone to see if you had it or not. I'm just kind of curious as there was a follow-up.
So if you want, Chief, I can clarify. So we received an inquiry from a media outlet because they were aware of these circumstances happening around the county and asked us about ours and if any of them rose to the level of crime. And we reached back to them and told them, no, we have had that incident on the same date. However, we didn't have any of them that rose to a crime. And that was the communication. And then nothing was published on a press release from the police department.
Just curious. I have people inside the church who are like, well, I don't know about this, and I try to publicize it in a variety of different ways, but it's never the right way, right? So I just was curious if it was just a place that she wasn't picking up on it, or if it had.
I have a question on the community input sessions. Are you going to discuss with the public as they come in or when they're there that we are starting like mediation policies and that we have a CPOB so that they know when they're giving feedback to what the community wants, that what steps we're taking already to kind of address their concerns?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I could just give some informational at the beginning. Citygate is running it. But that's a great point. You have the informational up front because people just may not know.
I think a lot of times the public doesn't know what's going on and they are making assumptions that may not be true.
And come to think of it, that reminds me, Leroy, myself, and the chief are going to present at both the Republican club meeting and the Democratic club meeting, just talk about what the CPOB is about. And that would be really important to mention, the mediation. That could be part of, your presentation. Because I think that's a valuable, audience who are involved citizens and would like to know. So,
That's a good segue into the next item.
That's right.
Okay, next item, 5.4, selection of our mediation policy subcommittee.
Yeah, maybe I could start this one out if I may, Chair. So at the August 8th council meeting, the city council approved the mediation policy on consent. So that is good. Our next steps are to go out to bid for mediation services. Staff is currently working on a bid packet and a scope of work. We've reached out to NACOL on their listserv to try to get some examples of scopes of work for mediation services that other cities have done. We've received one so far that has been helpful. However, there's going to be components of ours that we're going to have to tailor make to our policy because every city's mediation policy is a little different. Specifically what's been discussed here already is how is the person notified of mediation? What is the interaction between the police department and the complainant? How does the mediator get involved? Those dynamics, right? So we're currently working on that scope of work. What we need to do tonight is select a mediation policy subcommittee that is going to opine on that scope of work, going to be part of the review of the bid submittals that are received. Well, once we get those back after the bid packet's advertised. And then that subcommittee would also partake in any interviews that took place of candidates and be part of the selection. So that is what this item is about. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
How long do you have to put out the request for bids on that? Is there a certain length of time?
I do not believe there is, unless Ms. Lee knows something I don't. 30 days, we could do 60 days.
Really, usually one about 6 weeks, so then that you want enough opportunity for it to go out within the community so people can have, and then enough opportunity for someone to give a thoughtful response as well. So typically 6 weeks, because that gives someone about 2 weeks to get the notification, and then you want a period where they can ask questions, and then enough time for staff to respond to those questions, and then enough time to incorporate those responses into it as well. So we would be once, would we look locally, and would we, I guess my question is, would these be taking place online
It would
or?
be placed on Planet Bids, the city's bid, online bid service, which is very popular and is national.
Isn't that-
So it would, that would be our mechanism to advertise the bid. If it's the subcommittee's desire or it is agreed upon, we could reach out to local companies to alert them of the bid. We've done that before as an extra activity to ensure responses. That can be done. So Planet Bids is really the mechanism. And if you want to go above and beyond that, we can contact companies. It's perfectly legal to do that.
And there's a list of, on Planet Bids, people sign up to be a preferred bidder or kind of be notified of responses. And so I don't know if we have any mediators that are on there because it's people, but just randomly, we have like 1,000 people on there that just want to be notified whenever La Mesa puts out a bid, and it's from all different genres of work. So typically people see it and then they're like, oh, I'm not a fit for that, but I know this consultant is. So it gets downloaded quite often.
And I also would like to mention that we will be reaching out to the POA. They will have a representative on the selection process as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the company that we selected, are they gonna be local? So like mediation is gonna happen face to face, or is this something that someone from, you know, another state can?
Unknown.
Anyone can apply. However, during your selection, when you're applying as well, they have to take that into account themselves, that they're going to fly someone out every single time, because we get to dictate what the board, the city gets to dictate what our parameters are. So if we want it to be in person and not virtual mediation, then they need to account for that, and then that increases costs as well. And
You
so
can have input on that.
that's
could be
through
written
the
out
whole
in scope.
entire RFP process. So what we are looking to have is a subcommittee select how many people that would probably be up to the subcommittee, but we need someone to select to help create the scope of work within the parameters of what's actually allowable for bids. And then also that same subcommittee would review them as well. And it's also with the input of the POA and also staff, and then it would go to council for ultimate approval. The RFP doesn't have to go to it, but the ultimate selection of the mediator would.
My
Depending
thought
on the
would be to-
contract cost.
My thought would be to have someone local. That's my 2 cents.
You, you can definitely, we would have to look at the parameters of the RFP as well, because there's certain bid requirements when you're looking at points of, if we have a local bid preference, I don't believe we have that in our
I don't
ordinance.
think we do.
So some cities have something called a local bidder preference where you get additional points, just like if you're a veteran. We do not have that in our ordinance, so that's not something we'd be able to consider.
If we do hire someone out of the region and we require in the scope of work that it's in person, that will increase costs.
Yes.
So that is something that the subcommittee and staff are gonna have to vet as we develop this RFP.
Your current mediation documents, we could do it either way, right? That we would have in person and that Zooms would be allowed also. So
Could do
that's
that,
what we
yeah.
have right now, but I kind of agree with what you're saying, John. We want somebody local.
Okay, yeah, so we can definitely flush that out in the process.
Yeah.
How many people are on the subcommittee?
What would we like to have?
The preference, you don't want huge subcommittee, so you want enough where you can get people to show up as well and not be working with conflicting schedules. So it would most likely be a person from staff, a person from the POA, and a person from the board as well, so one person, or were you thinking two?
I was thinking one or two,
Mhm.
max two. But you're gonna have, and we're thinking this out loud here right now. One or two staff, probably one POA, I don't know, maybe two, and then one or two from the CPOB. Again, Amanda's correct, we don't want
Yeah.
a 6 or 7 or 8 person interview panel when we go to interview.
Sure.
So we want to be mindful of that. But I'm thinking we select two tonight.
It's interesting. I'm vitally interested, but I think we need to have at least 2 people from the oversight board. So I'd
You've
like to
got to
have-
be.
Yeah, I'm not letting this one go.
Sounds like.
Cool. It's really interesting.
else wants to.
We're gonna need a motion
Yeah.
and we're gonna need a vote. And it would be to formulate a subcommittee consisting of Chair Johnson, Board Member Fonseca, to serve on the mediation subcommittee.
Want to have
I-
an ad hoc subcommittee?
Ad hoc subcommittee, I stand corrected. Can't forget ad hoc.
Yeah, we only.
You guys meet.
Yes.
Okay.
I so
Somebody
move
keeps us in line.
to do just that. If we got that captured all right.
Stacy, is that clear on the motion?
That's clear.
Is there a first?
Did we have a second?
I second.
Oh,
Board Member Wayne,
yes.
Board Member Martin,
Yes.
Board Member Gomez,
Yes.
Board Member Fonseca,
Yes.
Board Member Demit,
Yes.
Vice Chair Castaños,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries with all board members voting yes.
Okay. You'll be hearing from staff shortly. Okay. For scheduling our first meeting. We'll reach out to the POA rep. Right, next item, please.
Our next item is item number 6, committee reports. I've got one that's just burning to be spoken about. We met on May 15th, so this is our committee on hiring practices, promotions, and employee wellness. And we met on the May 15th and sent out these notes to the other committee members on June 12th. And just a few things that really jumped out I wanted to talk about. One is that our LMPD psychologist, Dr. Sani, and Chief, you mentioned she'll be scheduled for a meeting here in the future. What we're trying to do is come up with a good psychological evaluation. And we're currently using one document or one form of evaluation. We'd like to see what else is out there. So that's one thing we wanted to look at. We also had, our committee had a lot of great discussions. One, some of them I highlighted and read, we had a conversation about monitoring social media accounts, not just before people get hired, but even after they've been hired, right? So I don't know how easy that is to do. It's probably really easy to do, right? Anybody can find anything on anybody's social media if they want, right? So just the thought that the monitoring would continue even after the person was hired. People would say, hey, been here 2 years, the stuff you're posting is not cool. So that was one thing we actually talked about. We had a discussion about employees, particularly the police, dealing with mental trauma, and we reached an agreement that maybe incentivizing related time off as related to some of the traumatic experience. You know, we had discussions, oh, maybe we should force people into counseling. We're not gonna force people to do anything. It's probably to take some time off here if they've been involved in something that was really traumatic. Would be one thing that we're looking at. And we also talked about got input from the LMPD rep that there's wellness in-service training every 2 years, and the wellness summit is also a big thing. And I know that our wellness program is one of the nationally recognized ones, so we're up there. We just want to stay there and become number one, move up from number 2 to number 1, right? So we have lots of great things going on there. Those were the highlights. What I have to do. I don't know if the other two subcommittees, committee of policing has anything, or the policies, ops and training.
One thing I'd like to add,
ahead.
just as a follow-up, Leroy,
Sure.
thank you, is we've received, if I remember right, when the committees met originally, we received back memos on how the meeting went and the notes that basically help inform the annual report. We got those back from some of the committees. We did not get it back from all of them. I don't have it in front of me which ones submitted and which ones didn't, but I know there's at least one outstanding. I'll be sending out an email asking for that from that subcommittee. And the reason for that is, again, it's important because it helps inform the annual report that is coming up at the end of this calendar year that goes to city council, that speaks to what the commission has been working on. It's used to inform that document. So I just wanted to mention that there's probably not enough members here tonight to vet that. So we'll probably re-agendize committee reports and keep talking about it, or just keep talking about it under this item.
I could share that it was back in May that the community outreach, policing and outreach did meet virtually. And so board member Tiffany and Lieutenant Hildebrand and I met, and we did submit a report.
I think I did get one from you folks, so you're not on the bad list. You're on the good.
I wanted to make sure we weren't. And so that report had been submitted. Sorry, I'm thinking it was so far back. I don't know if we reported on it since. We have not met since that timeframe. But felt pretty confident about the efforts of the police department to do outreach. I mean, September 7th and September 9th are definitely a part of that. We talked about their participation at the what I saw at the Little League opening day and all of that. We came up with a few other ideas. Always knowing that those ideas then put more expectations on staffing and all of that, but we were feeling pretty confident that, the coffee with the cop and cocoa with the cop and all of those things are really help with the relationship building within the community, and I felt pretty confident about it. So we just continued to brainstorm other ideas and possible ways of just continuing to come up with other maybe areas places that we're not reaching, and how do we reach those places in our community. So I appreciate the fact that there's 2 of these community events, one on a weekday evening and one on a weekend morning. I know that that's always tough too, but it allows for those who work and those who have families and those who to have 2 options. That's always really helpful.
And maybe the commissions or committees need to meet again if they want to. Maybe that option is afforded. I don't know what the chair and vice chair feel about that, but if there's a desire for them to want to reconvene one more time, we do that before finalizing the memo. It's your call.
Might not have everybody on, because there are new members that have come on to the CPOB. So Lauren and Manny are full policies, operations and training. But we probably.
Do we have Luke?
I don't know that you guys have ever met, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
so we need another person on probably each of the committees, and I don't think Susan's.
Why don't we agendize that for the next meeting?
Okay.
To get an update on appointments to the committees, and then we can float the idea of an option to reconvene one more time before we get the memos and inform the annual report.
Did you want to mention that we talked with the chief about law enforcement the tiers of, I mean, I don't know if you want to mention it, because bottom line is, when we met with Chief Sweeney about various tiers of support for our officers, So everything doesn't fall on the lap of the police officer. There are various levels, and the chief pretty much let us know that that's pretty much what they're doing right now. And with this new Citygate report, that's something that will give the department more information about what their needs are. So this information was interesting and helpful, and we thought we'd look at it again once that report is in.
Yeah, pretty proud actually that a lot of the things that were mentioned in there about civilian mental health, about civilians responding to homelessness, about civilians working in the police department, responding to some of those calls that officers may not, we're already doing.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the great news. We've done a lot of great things in the last several years to make sure that happens with our home team. Out there doing a great job. MCRT, Mobile Crisis Response Team through the county, PERT has always been here. And then our community service officers, like I mentioned, those are our civilians. We talked about maybe renaming them, you know, just trying to think outside the box, but they're civilians doing this job and going out and taking, we call cold crimes, where there's no suspect information or immediate personal follow-up that needs to be done, but at least they're out there responding to those calls and taking those off of what a sworn police officer would respond to. And when I first started here, I think we had one community service officer and he worked traffic only and didn't take any other reports. So we've come a very long way.
Yeah, it seems like, well, good, Susan.
Just wanted to ask a question about something you had said, Mr. Johnson. How are the employees in the police department if they have a traumatic experience? Then what is the requirement for an evaluation before they're put back online?
They are required to go through a psychological evaluation for return to duty, especially in a critical incident like the one we just had. Typically, I mean, an officer involved shooting, they would go on administrative leave, paid administrative leave, and then be offered the services. We have a very robust peer support and wellness program here at our department. So we have a department psychologist assigned to this department only. And that is, the officers are afforded to go to her at any time and they use it. But in critical incidents, we've had other instances that are not as traumatic as the one I just mentioned, but they're still traumatic, going to unfortunately a dead baby call or walking in and having somebody commit suicide in front of you. We've had those instances, and we have those resources available to those officers. We work very closely with Dr. Sani. Dr. Sani is our police pre-screening psychologist, and she's going to come out and do a presentation. But Dr. Catherine Butler is the psychologist that is assigned to our department, and she does a wonderful job.
So they're required to go?
It depends on the incident. If it's a critical incident where they're involved, like our officer involved shooting, they are required. They're required to make sure that they're okay. We still, although we may not require it, we require it. We want them to get help. We want them to address any issues that may come up that they don't know about. So we do that on a proactive approach of explaining to them what they may experience, what they've gone through. We're to the point right now where actually our officers come to us and say, can I? And the answer is yes. So we're in a good spot right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just that last piece about that augmentation group, you know, when we get the finalized reports, we can see maybe how this fits next to that. Maybe there'll be things that can work together. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be, this staffing report is looking at everything.
Yeah.
I mean, what we can do better, how we can be more efficient, it's all gonna be on the table.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important for community listening sessions like we're having, where the community to provide input, just like we saw there. And there may be things that come up that we're just like, oh, I haven't thought about that before. That sounds great. So if it works, yeah, nothing's off the table.
Item 7, any staff and board member announcements?
I just want to announce that our PhD student at San Diego State is reviewing our survey, the second round of surveys that we collected, community surveys about attitudes the public has about our La Mesa Police Department. And he's gathering that information, he's putting it into a report he would like to present at our next meeting. The year before, we received a report, and typically, it showed us a few areas where growth would be helpful. There was nothing really awful about the report. It really showed that the community feels pretty good about our police department, and that's coming, 1 year following the 2020 riot and all that took place in La Mesa. So people were really down that first year, things got better. We're seeing things getting, you could see the attitudes are improving, and I think the more, we have a new chief, we have new captains, there's all of these changes that have come about in the police department. So we're hoping that over a 3-year period, we see considerable growth, and I think we will. It looks like it's headed in that direction. So we're going to, for the 3rd year of that survey, we're planning to conduct the surveys again online. We're going to administer them at community gatherings. Hopefully, Citygate will be okay with us distributing the survey on the 7th and the 9th. And then at the Republican Party gathering, you're all welcome to come if you want, August 31st at 10 a.m. Or the Dem, one or the other, is going to be the same presentation. The Democratic Party gathering or presentation September 6th, 7 p.m. And if you want more information about those, let me know. It'd be great to have CPOB members there. We don't want all of you there because it might be a Brown Act violation. I don't know. But we're mainly going to be talking about the work we've done. So it's not like we're going to bring up new things and violate Brown Act. But anyway, you're welcome to attend either one of those. And I could get more information out to you probably through Lynn. And the second thing is gun safety measure legislation. That's, as I mentioned last meeting, that's something that's going to be presented to City Council and ordinance. And I just want to clarify what that is, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about it. It's about locking guns up, and when you leave your house, you lock your guns up. And that will help if there's a robbery in your house and somebody has as happened in La Mesa down the street from me. They took 3 long rifles and the police came and they had stolen 3 long rifles and ammunition. And what do the police do? They're kind of up against this. So that's dangerous for cops, it's dangerous for the community. So we're just asking people if they leave their house to lock their guns up. It doesn't mean that if you're in your house and you have to sleep with your gun under your pillow, you can do that. That's not what this ordinance is about. You can sleep with your gun under your pillow if that makes you feel good. But if you leave the house, you lock your gun. And it does save lives. And I know this past year we've had 5 suicides by guns. That is something that, guns are locked up. Just that time it takes to open the safe and get it out, or take the gun lock off, can trigger your brain into realizing, okay, this is not what I want to do. And that kind of resolves, a lot of times resolves the problem to a certain extent so they could get help. So just want to alert everybody that's coming forward, but don't be swayed by the fact that, the belief that guns always have to be locked up. They don't. But when you leave, you would lock your guns up. It just makes sense. And also there are gun safety measures statewide that people with minors in the house have to lock their guns up. But it doesn't resolve some of the issues I just mentioned. So there's a lot of good things about this citywide ordinance, but it would be great if, as a CPOB body, we could come forward and speak to it representing us, but we would have to vote on it. So that would be something that, as the ordinance comes out, it could be something we could look at. And that is in our ordinance for the CPOB, we are asked to examines public safety measures. So it's not all about just the police department, but on matters of public safety within the city. So that is part of our charge, just FYI. Is that okay? Okay. And he's remaining impartial, which is smart, just let whatever happens, the department enforces the law, the city council makes the law, so the chief is just,
We're all for safety.
we're all for safety.
Be safe.
Okay, and that's all good. So anyway, enough of that.
Thank you. Any other announcements? No? Item number 8 is adjournment. We're adjourning at 5:05.
Good job.
All right, 5:05 adjournment. Thank you, Mr. Larson, for attending. Pretty quiet over there, but I guess that's good.
You guys are on autopilot at this point.
Good.
Thanks for your time, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Rasmussen. Stay safe. Thank you, everybody.